Well, before we talk to our panel, I'm going to speak first to the British-Iranian author, Sanam Naraghi Anderlini. She's founder and executive director of the International Civil Society Action Network. Sanam, thanks for your time today. Just tell me how you've been feeling the past 10, 11 days, watching from afar everything that's happening in Iran.
It has been a very, very difficult few days, as you can imagine. Partly because all of us have family in Iran, and the words that they tell us convey so much and so little. The answers we get are, we are fine, everybody's fine. And in that context of fine lies so much, because of course, they don't want to share with us what they're going through. There's also fear of surveillance, possibly. And so it's very, very hard to watch the news knowing that you have friends and family and elderly relatives there, but also to see heritage sites being damaged, to see hospitals. 20 hospitals have been hit, schools, water depots, flower stores. I mean, it's the civilian infrastructure and the sites that are really for the well-being of the public are being targeted daily.
Sanam, how much more of this can the Iranian people take?
That's a very good question. I mean, last time that Iran encountered war, an international war, was in the 1980s. It was an 8-year war against Iraq. They had no international support then either. And Iraq again was the invader, but Iran was never supported. Actually, it was supported, ironically, by Syria and Israel at the time in terms of weaponry, but it didn't have much support otherwise. And the society and the state functioned. People, the army, there was national service, military service for men, but there was also a system of men volunteering to go to the front every 6 weeks. So people were going in the summers for 6 weeks and coming back. And there were rations in terms of food and petrol and things like that. So that has, they withstood that for 8 years. The country at the time was a population of 30 million. Now it's 90 million. The state was a new state. At the time, it probably had more support than it does now. But this is a very resilient population, and certainly for now, it seems that things are functioning and. We'll see. There's also a difference between what the regime is willing to withstand and what the public is willing to withstand.
Sanam, how do you feel the UK and European nations have behaved towards Iran and this conflict?
So, number one, I think that any country that has decided to enter the war, either offensively or defensively, is making a grave mistake, because by international law, this is an illegal war. It's a war of choice. So why would we get ourselves entangled in, as I say, international illegality and then war crimes that are now being perpetrated? That I think is one issue. The second issue is the level of unfairness, if you want. I am not a fan of the regime. I think that the regime has been horrific to its own public. I certainly haven't been able to return home safely in the last 10 years, never knowing whether if I go back, I might be arrested or detained or questioned for no reason whatsoever. But there has to be a degree of fairness. And the fact of the matter is that at the Security Council, they passed a resolution where they blame Iran for its defensive actions, very harsh defensive actions, if you want, against American bases in the region and American economic interests. But they said nothing about the Israeli and American aggression. And I think that this is where Europe also needs to take a stronger stance. They need to adhere to international law. That is what keeps us all together. And if that international law is ripped apart in this generation of leaders, they are setting a terrible precedence for the future, and also doing deep disrespect to 500 years of human endeavor and 2 world wars, the victims of 2 world wars, and it allows us to have this international body of law. So I would like to see our leaders be a bit more fair and balanced in how they adhere to the laws and to the norms, and not get involved in the actual war and help with the de-escalation, in fact.
Sanam, just briefly, one final question to you. Do you see the Iranian regime being forcibly changed by Trump and Netanyahu?
I don't think that this is going to be the pathway to change. The Iranian regime is not a monolith that, as we saw with Iraq or Libya or these other countries. It is a very structured system of governance in terms of both the security and the political apparatus and the administrative apparatus. And Iran as a nation historically has deep aversion to foreign intervention. We withstood British empirical, empire kind of colonial interests and Russian colonial interests for over 100 years. The independence is incredibly important. And I think what the regime is now possibly able to do is to actually weave its own survival with nationalism. And this is something that up to now, the Iranian public was pushing back against the regime and actually changing it from the ground up. Women, Life, Freedom in 2022 was a systematic approach to changing the behavior of the regime towards its own public and dismantling the mandatory hijab laws, which is such an ideological pillar of this regime. So we've seen change from below. That's what works. This violent, sort of oppressive change coming from two nuclear powers is incredibly dangerous for Iran, and it's incredibly dangerous for the region. And what worries me is that the escalation is going to lead us all into unprecedented territory. And that's why we need guardrails around the kinds of weapons being used, around the sites being used, and getting down to de-escalation measures as soon as possible.
Sanam Naraghi, Anderlini, thank you so much joining us there from London.